welcome. We're back here again with another episode of Casing the Joint, brought to you by the Boyertown Museum of Historic Vehicles. I'm Kendra.
I'm Dan.
And here on Casing the Joint, we like to take a small artifact from one of our many cases and give you a little more background on it, because we have a lot of cool little things sitting around here. And I'm sure that, Dan, you will recognize this one.
Yes, it's a tiger tail.
That is a tiger tail. Now, this was a promotional item from Esso gasoline in the early 60s. And yeah, I have a little ad here just so you can see our
little Esso sign.
Our lovely tiger. Actually, I was reading this, and this is an English publication because they call it petrol, for one thing, and they spell rumor with the U. So this is an English ad, but we're actually going to talk a little bit about England later.
Okay.
But Esso gave away 2.5 million of these, sold or distributed in the United States. That's a lot of tiger tails. So, of course, right, Dan, this hangs on your gas cap, essentially. So it looks like you've got the tiger tail sticking out, of your gas tank there.
Because you had a tiger in your tank.
Because you put a tiger in your tank. Now, that slogan was first used by Esso in 1959, and a copywriter in Chicago, a young copywriter, came up with that slogan. His name was Emery Smith, which is cool because Emery is a family name, and so is Smith for me. I thought that was kind of cool. Yeah. Okay. I don't think we're related though. But anyway. So the tiger mascot, even though that slogan came about in 1959, tiger as a mascot is a lot older than that. And that was used all the way back at about the turn of the century, actually, but by Esso in Norway.
How about that?
Yeah. So in the United States, they started to put the tiger in advertising like towards the end of World War II.
I didn't know they had tigers in Norway.
Or Britain.
Yeah. And well, I'm like Norwegian background.
See?
And I've never heard anything.
You're not related to that tiger?
No.
I'm not related to Emery Smith either.
No. Okay.
In 1964 is when the tiger really starts to get used heavily by Esso. And that ad campaign was developed by McCann Erickson, which was one of the probably the most famous ad agency. And we'll get to them in a second, off Madison Avenue. But the early 70s, they kind of pulled back a little bit on the tiger because we had an oil crisis. And so, an excessive use of gasoline is really kind of frowned upon it for a little bit there. But McCann Erickson is interesting. Also, I said they were famous. I'm not joking. You probably have, a lot of their stuff. They're also famous for the It's the Real Thing campaign for Coca-Cola, and that I'd Like to Buy the World a Coke song.
How does that go? No, okay. Never mind.
Copyright, I can't do that.
Oh, yeah. Well, that song was also like a hit song.
Yes, I'd like to teach the world to sing. Yeah, it's kind of a riff on that.
Yeah. Okay.
They're responsible for the Army Strong campaign for the U.S. Army, the Rice-A-Roni jingle.
The San Francisco treat.
Exactly. And the whole MasterCard, there are some things money can't buy. For everything else, there's MasterCard. So, a lot of their work beyond just the tiger. But anyway, this tiger, he's a nice, kind of cute little cartoony kind of tiger here. And even this concept is kind of cartoony too, in a way. This cute little plush tiger tail hanging out of your gas tank. In 1996, though, Kellogg takes some issue with now ExxonMobil. Now they're not known as Esso really anymore, for trademark infringement of their Tony the Tiger. And what they actually really don't like is when ExxonMobil is using the tiger to sell food at its convenience stores.
Got it.
So they don't really care about the tiger with the gas. It's when the tiger starts selling food. And it looks like this litigation went on for several years, because I read this was going all the way into the 2000s. They're still fighting about this. But yeah, they do eventually replace this cute little cartoony tiger with a real tiger. You know, you probably remember they actually have, like, you know, footage of a tiger out there in their ads. Oh, but before we get to him, also, do you know the 1964 country hit, I've Got a Tiger by the Tail, by Buck Owen and the Buckaroos? Supposedly was inspired when he saw the "Put a Tiger in Your Tank" slogan at a gas station. I read the lyrics, and it's really nothing to do with cars or anything, but I don't know if that's true or an urban legend, but supposedly that's what that says. But like I said, they moved on to then using a real tiger, and they kind of got away from this cartoony thing. And here's some weird trivia. In 2016, the tiger, his name was Tango. And he was the real tiger used for these ad campaigns in the 90s. He died in 2016 at the age of 22 in the United Kingdom at Lincolnshire's Woodside Wildlife Park. And he was moved to this kind of sanctuary in 2014, because after the Esso and Exxon campaign, he then was put in a circus, and there was a lot of claims of mistreatment and abuse as when he was part of the circus. So all these people got together, and they spent £50,000 to rescue him from this circus, along with his partner Julia. Tango and Julia. And they moved them to this wildlife sanctuary, and he lived out the rest of his life there. So that's what happened to the tiger that you're used to seeing, and the real life tiger that you're used to seeing. So that's a little bit about Esso and their tiger. And I just have to say, before I wrap it up here, now this is our third episode of Casing the Joint, and I have to say that I'm really amazed at all of the various things that I have researched in doing this. When I decided, I'm going to talk a little bit about this ad campaign and the tiger tail, never did I envision learning about Britain's oldest tiger in captivity, but here we are.
Here we are, yeah. There's
just so much history. You take a small object and you can go in a lot of different directions that you really weren't expecting. So honestly, things that we don't cover in our museum signage, sometimes because we don't have the space, and sometimes because they're just little tangential trivia things. But I thought it was interesting. I had to slip in Tango in there.
Okay, cool. I'm going to say this anyway. We were talking about this before, and I said, I'm not going to say it, but I'm going to. When I was a kid, our next door neighbor had a Esso gas station, and his son was my best friend. And so they always had these free giveaways. This tail was probably one of them. And so we always had things as kids and free things from Esso. And the only thing I can remember is a genuine U.S. Constitution. I mean, it wasn't a fake. It was the real thing.
Genuine.
Yeah, it was.
I hope you saved that. It should be worth something now.
No, it was just kind of a cool thing that, we would get things once in a while. And they had, I don't know how this was, but, they also had a drop of gasoline was part of their advertising.
Yes.
With face and feet and arms and stuff.
And actually, this came out of a case we have of Esso things.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of promotional stuff in there. And what you're talking about, the oil drop, and he has a name, and I cannot think of it off the top of my head right now. And maybe I'll have to do something on them too.
And another thing about the tiger tail, I'm trying to think, this was probably in the late 60s. The Pontiac GTO was called the Tiger. Okay? And I'm thinking 67. I'm just thinking that year there was, I believe, a Ford advertisement. They showed a Ford Fairlane. and a tail like this coming out from underneath the hood. In other words, our Ford ate your GTO. And the wording there, it kind of alludes to that.
Yeah.
It's kind of neat. Yeah.
It's cute. I mean, people remember that, and it is a good slogan. So there you go. There's your tiger tail. So you got to come here and check out our whole case full of Esso stuff.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to do that as soon as we're done here.
I know you are. You're going to run over there and look at the oil droplet.
Yeah.
Thank you all for joining. Make sure you keep tuning in to us here on YouTube, and we will see you next time.